Hello and welcome to another Shadowshaper Duels video. In today's video I'm once again going to be discussing the cards that Ming is currently selling and just giving my very quick take on each of the cards so you know if there is anything that you should pick up. Just as a reminder, it does appear that what Ming sells is different per region. So I am on the EMEA server, so this is what he is selling here. If you are on a different server, you are probably going to have a different selection of cards. Unfortunately, there is no way I can check that. But if you are on a different server, feel free to leave your comments below to let other people know what he is selling in your region. There is also a chance that if there is maintenance on Thursday, the shop may reset after that, as it has done that sometimes in the past. So if there is anything here you want to get, I would recommend grabbing it sooner rather than waiting till later in the week, just in case it gets changed. So now to move on to the cards. First of all, he is selling Estella, which is an exotic card. When played, grants a unit a power bonus equal to 2 times the number of units in your opponent's front row. This is a card I have been using quite a lot recently. It's part of my deck. And essentially it is an alternative playstyle to Ikora. Both Ikora and Estella have 13 health, so they are equal in that sense. And whereas Ikora will attack everything in a row for 2 damage, Estella will instead grant you a power bonus times 2. So, you know, they could effectively do the same, it's just Ikora deals damage, whereas Estella gives a buff, but it could be the same number. So if you're looking for something different and, you know, possibly equally as strong as Ikora, then Estella is not a bad card to have. To be honest, I usually run both an Estella and an Ikora in my deck, so that I have both an attacking or a passive option, because there's always no guarantee you pull your exotic card anyway, so it's good to have options. So yeah, if that wasn't apparent, I would say Estella is definitely worth buying, just because you know, she's an exotic card and you don't know when she'll next be sold. Next, you have Think Tank, which is an attacking card that deals damage to a unit equal to the highest power bonus on your field. Now, this is a card I would definitely recommend picking up if you have not yet got the triumph for dealing 40 damage to a unit in a single attack, because I believe this is certainly the only way I have managed to deal that much damage. I have a guide video which already covers the strategy, but essentially you spend your first 5 rounds making a unit have a really high power bonus, and then you combine Think Tank with Yolda, and you are able to hit 40 damage, because essentially you are in complete control of how much damage Think Tank will deal, just based on how much power bonus you manage to give a unit. Outside of that build, it's a card I've never really used, to be honest, because there are better attacking cards. This obviously requires a lot of investment, but if you still need that triumph for the title, then you should absolutely pick Think Tank up. We then have three Hive cards. Starting off, we have the Ogre. This is one of the few Hive cards that is focused on attacking. When acquiring a buff, it just deals 1 damage to 2 random opposing units. So that's not a bad attacking option. You know, if you think of, say, the Scorpius turret, that only deals 1 damage to 1 unit. So this is twice as good as a Scorpius turret. Obviously, the only limitation is for this card to work, you have to give it a power bonus. But if you're running a Hive deck, that shouldn't be difficult to do, because the whole playstyle of the Hive revolves around granting your cards inspired. So if you can make this Ogre inspired, it will then attack every round. So it is a good attacking option, and I usually have one of these in my Hive deck. Next, we have the Cursed Thrall, which is just essentially the Hive version of the Exploding Shank. It moves onto your opponent's front row and then explodes at the start of your next turn, dealing 2 damage. If you like a playstyle that involves sending cards to your opponent's front row and then, them dealing damage, it's not bad. You know, I have heard people combining this with explosive shanks in their deck and just having a playstyle that constantly revolves around sending explosives to your opponent. It's not personally a playstyle I have ever used, but unless you were doing something like that, to be honest, I don't really think there is much of a point to this card. I tend to run other things in my Hive deck. So if you were looking for something to not spend your tokens on, this is probably a card you could pass on. Next, we have just a regular Thrall. As much as this is a rare card and doesn't really have any special effects, I still think it is worth picking up because there are not many Hive cards that only cost 1 energy. And obviously with the Hive, you do want to try and make as many of your units inspired as possible, assuming you have the Hive exotic card. So having a card that only costs 1 energy to play could be good maybe for the later rounds when you have other cards that give inspired to your Hive units. You can play this and then make it inspired with a different card, and then you just have more inspired Hive units. So it's mainly a card I would say it's worth having because it's such a cheap card to play rather than it having any special effect itself. And then finally we have one Cabal card, which is a line unit. It is just an attacking card, so when played in a 3-unit line, it allows you to deal 3 damage to a unit in the opponent's back row. So it is a good attacking option. 3 damage is a good amount of damage, and obviously the back row, I do tend to find people usually play more cards in the back row than the front row, so it's not a bad row to be able to attack. Obviously, if you are picking up this card, it will only work in a Cabal line deck because you will need other line units to be able to play it. If you are using a different deck, then this card is completely pointless because unless you've invested in line units, you will never be able to use its effect. So yeah, if you are looking to put together a Cabal line deck, I would pick this up. I think I certainly have one of them in my line deck, but if you're not using the Cabal cards, then this is something you can pass on. So they are all the cards that he is currently selling. As always, my recommendation would be if you have enough tokens, you play this game every day and you know, win some matches during the match made duels. You should have enough tokens that you can buy everything he sells every week. At least I have certainly been able to do that. But if you are, you know, tight on tokens, then the cards I would recommend you pick up are Estella, Think Tank if you still need the Triumph, and then maybe the Ogre or the Cabal card if you're looking to put together either a Hive or a Cabal deck. Thank you for watching.